Welcome, I'm Denise Graves, and you're watching Opera America's Oral History Project.
Well, Vincent Cole, thank you so much for being with us today. I'm really grateful. As you know, we are doing an oral history project in association with our 50th anniversary, talking to people who've made a real impact on American opera over the last 5 decades, and you are one of them, and it's a real honor to speak with you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Now, you may know that I start every interview with the question of who brought you to your first opera?
Oh, gosh, my first opera. My first opera was, my mother brought me to my first opera. I had been heard by a woman at my grandmother's church as a child. And so she said, he's very talented. And so my mother took me to the opera and I saw Madame Butterfly at the Kansas City Lyric Opera.
So in Kansas City, okay.
Yes. And so I saw that.
Did you enjoy your first opera? Did it make an impression?
I did. It made an impression enough that, when they asked me, they said, we hear that you're a singer. Can you sing for us? And I sang for them as a little kid. I was 9 years old. And I did for about 4 years. I did Garardino in Johnny Skiki. Okay. And I did the little kid in Bohème, the trumpet, Mm-hmm. And I did the shepherd boy in Tosca. And I did, I guess that's about it. No, that's enough, I think.
And that was when Russell Patterson was running the company for us.
Yes, yeah. Very true.
Wow. Yeah. I am always interested in learning how people discover they have talent, or when they realize actually the talent is something they should really nurture. And here someone in church said, the kid's talented. You were a boy soprano.
Yes.
And, sang with the opera company. But when did you, because the voice changes and it doesn't always change in a happy way. When did someone hear your post-pubescent voice and say, Vincent, you've got a talent here?
I would say, well, my voice teacher the first voice teacher I had was very conscious that, I think you might have something. And unfortunately, he knew that he was not well. And so he, as he got sicker, he kind of said, now look, just do this. And he kind of told me what to do and what not to do. He said, continue to sing. Don't stop singing.
Was this high school or college or?
I was still in grade school.
Really?
Yeah. And he said, still continue to sing during this whole time. And he said, because I think many voice sopranos, we lose tenors because of that.
Right.
And he said, and I think if you continue to sing, you'll be fine. And so the voice teacher then he died shortly after that. And then I went to another voice teacher in Kansas City, and he wanted me to quit. He said, I think you should quit. And I said, well, Mr. Van Derzen always said, continue to sing. And he said, well, I'm not sure. And so my mother said, I talked to my mother and I said, what do you think we should do? And she said, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to continue to study. And so she said, well, why don't we go to, as a student of Mr. Van Derzen's? And so that's what we did. We went to, his name is Richard Schumacher, and we went to him. And he said, oh, I'm so glad you came to me. And he said, yes, Mr. Van Derzen always talked about you. And, this is the correct thing to do. And so I continued to sing during the whole, it really wasn't so much of a change because I just started singing things down, a third or a second or a first. Whatever was necessary.
So you didn't have that pubescent train wreck of the voice change.
No, I didn't go, oh,
Exactly.
It went right down the scale, and I continued to sing all during that time, and that was the beginning of it.
So
Yeah.
high school continued, and
High school I continued, and let's see, right before I went to high school, right as I was in high school, I did a mall and mall life visitors
sure,
for my
sure.
sister's high school.
Yep.
And it just everything just fit.
And then college.
And then college, yes. Wasn't what I wanted to do at college. I didn't want to go to the university here because I'd been here for all my life so far. So I wanted to go away, and my mother said, "No, you're going to stay here and go to school." And I went, "Oh." And so I said, "Okay, fine." And at the end of the day, it's probably the best thing I could have done was to have stayed here. And I went to school, and then I sang. The last thing I sang at the lyric was, I guess, that was the Shepherd Boy in Tosca.
Okay.
And the Tosca was a woman named Judith DePaul who sang at the Met. She's at the Fresquita or the Mercedes. I can't remember which one she is. She's a soprano in the Carmen with Marilyn Horne
Sure.
and Bernstein.
Yep. Early 70s.
Yeah, and she said, "You should go and study with Margaret Harshaw at Indiana." And I said, "Oh, okay." And so I went to Indiana my sophomore year to do a Nats competition. And so I went and I met Miss Harshaw. She scared the death out of me. And I said, because I had met another student of hers, Mary Stribling, a girl, because they used to have a thing here called Performing Arts Foundation, and they did Medea with Magda Olivero
Sure.
and Bruno Prevedi, and just all these old people, and it was just fantastic. And so, and Mary Stribling was a beautiful, beautiful singer. And so I said, "Where did you study?" She said, "Oh, I studied at Indiana University with Margaret Harshaw." And so anyway, so I met her, and then I didn't go to Curtis until I auditioned at Curtis for the fourth year of my fourth year at UMKC.
Yeah.
And I auditioned at Curtis and went there and studied with her. So
Oh, so you studied with Margaret Harshaw at Academy of
at
Vocal Arts?
Curtis,
At Curtis. Okay, so you're at Curtis. Got it.
23 years.
Really?
Yeah, I just, I mean, numerous people tried to convince me to go other places. They said, "Why don't you go here? Why don't you go there?" And I said, "No," I said, "this works for me." I said, so,
It's funny. I would have gotten to it a little bit later in our chat today, but a great singer never stops studying.
yeah, well, you can't, not if you're gonna, I would ask her, I remember she was in her 80s, and I said, "How can you still do what you do?" And she said, "Well, I just have to do it. I just do it." She said, "I remember how it all goes. I remember what I did." And she said, "And I take a breath and I make it work." And she said, "If I ever stop," she said, "it's it's not gonna work for me."
Right.
And I'm not asking it to, she was telling me one time that she'd gotten a phone call from a church where she had sung back in the 40s in New York, and they said, "We're having an 80th anniversary, and we'd love to have you come and sing, the soprano part and Elijah." And she said, "You crazy?" She said, "I don't sing that." He said, "Well, could you sing the mezzo?" And she said, "No, I don't sing at all." She said, "I haven't for years." She said, it just wouldn't work." And he said, "Really?" She goes, "Yes." She said, "I could, she said, I could sing the notes." She said, "But I couldn't sing it."
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Vincent, what made Margaret Harshaw such a good singer such a good teacher for you?
oh gosh, I think she understood me. And so that was the biggest thing. I mean, we had a great relationship. a really great relationship, and I could talk to her about anything. I could talk to her about people, about, because I've always been a great listener and listened to way too many. I have a cabinet in there of LPs that, I'm going, what am I going to do with these? And then I have two closets full of CDs.
Yeah.
And I just have all sorts of, I listen to everybody under the sun. And I felt that I learned from listening. And, and we would sit and we would talk about people, and, because I mean, when you have somebody who sang in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, even if she wasn't singing, as she said, sometimes I wasn't singing in their repertoire, but I would just go and listen to it. And I would hear these things and I would say, oh my gosh, this is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. Now, as an established singer, what is it you continue to study? Here, you're having European debuts. We'll talk about it. You win a Metropolitan Opera National Council audition. We'll talk more about that. But you're still studying through all of this. What does an established singer continue to study?
Well, you can continue to, because your technique is never, it's complete, maybe completed, but it's not perfect. So you're constantly taking something and saying, okay, let me go with that. Let me work on that. Let me work, and especially and repertoire. I mean, we would just work on, new things, because I wasn't such an opera singer, but more of a concert singer. I mean, I did a lot of concert work. And so, I mean, opera would come to me, but it kind of came, things came late, a certain extent. And so I didn't know. I mean, when I sing L'Elisir d'Amore at the Met, that was the very first time I ever did it.
Oh, my word.
And I'm thinking, my God, you're going to go sing at the Met, L'Elisir d'Amore, and you've never sung it before in your life.
Right.
And everybody thinks that you probably have. And I said, I haven't. So,
you study.
Yeah, it works.
Your first engagements were in Europe. How did those come to be?
Well, I had sung, the very first things I did were in St. Louis. Richard Gaddis I had been in Seattle. I mean, I've been in Seattle. No, I hadn't been in Seattle yet. No, I'd been in Santa Fe for 2 summers as an apprentice. And Tom Graham heard me sing. And so he engaged me in Angers to sing Acis and Galatea, and also the Belmonte in the Abduction at the Welsh National Opera. And so those were there. And then from then I got I got a fair amount of European engagements. And I loved singing in Europe. I really did. I mean, the thing was that I didn't live there, which made it somewhat difficult, but it worked out,
I should say it worked out. But it's interesting how the apprentice program at Santa Fe was a springboard for you because of who heard you and who began to believe in you. When in this sequence did the Met National Council auditions come?
They came right after the 2 summers, because I had auditioned, of course, when I was a real kid in Kansas City, and the woman who ran the Met audition said, I'll never let you win. And I said, oh, that's okay. I'll save the $10 and just, use it later on. And so that's what happened. But yeah, I did them in New York. That was the freaky thing, because to be a winner out of New York City was like.
Sure. And the woman in Kansas City just felt you were too young?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, she just said, no, no, you can't do that.
Yeah.
I said, okay.
But what did winning the National Council auditions do for you? Confidence for sure. What else?
Well, yeah, I mean, I got my manager out of it at that time, and Colbert, um, which of course Richard Gaddis helped with that. And also I got a sense of that I knew that I was probably a good singer.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, even if I wasn't doing opera all the time. And I mean, when I first started a career, I mean, I really was doing a lot of orchestra concerts, which I loved. I loved more than anything. And they were very, very important to me. And so uh, that was a great thing to do.
Now, Vincent, you speak very warmly of doing concert work. And of course, the literature is fantastic. So as an artist, it's deeply rewarding. Did the concert work help you as an opera singer as well in terms of musicianship, artistry?
Yeah.
How did the concert work help you as an artist?
As an artist, the concert work, well, the music itself. I mean, when you think of singing Beethoven Ninth Symphony, think of singing Beethoven Missa Solemnis, Haydn Creation, Hand of Messiah, just all of these pieces that were perfect for my voice. I mean, I could sing them at a young age, at 24, 25, 26. I could do all these things and I could do them comfortably. Where I did sing Bohème at a very young age at New York City Opera. I did sing Bohème in other places at a young age, and people thought, well, that's too soon. And, and I kind of said, yeah, well, it may be, but it works for me because I sing it. The thing is that the thing that Margaret taught me, she said, sing with your voice and your voice alone.
Yeah.
And don't try and make another voice out of it.
Yeah.
And I never ever tried that. And even to this day, when I'm vocalizing, oh my gosh, I find myself, singing with my voice, not trying to do something, do something else with it. And
you mean you haven't become Franco Corelli in your later years?
No. Sometimes I wish I could.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You've had such a phenomenal career. When you spoke about singing in Europe, you just filled up with joy. What was different working in Europe from working in the US?
Oh gosh. Working in Europe at the beginning, well, all the time I worked there all my life. I find the Europeans extremely accepting of me and of what I had to say. And that was fantastic. I never had to worry about one of my big roles I sang in the States with orchestras was Damnation of Faust. And I did a lot of those in Europe also. And I did a lot of those as operas in Europe.
Right.
And that was a big challenge for me because I'd never done them as an opera. And, having to do them in opera, I did it at Scala, I did it in Hamburg, I did it in Munich, I did it in Dresden. It was like, wow. The best thing about something like that was singing it also with great conductors. I mean, that's where I really was lucky to work with wonderful, wonderful men that just knew how to shape a phrase with you and what you were going to
I noted in my research that you worked with von Karajan a lot. And
Yeah.
you're talking about musicianship and shaping a phrase. What was it like working with von Karajan?
Well, he was like, when they say he was God, I mean, I can agree with that. He was quite unique. He hired me when I was young, and I think he hired me because he thought, or he knew, one or the other, I'm not quite sure, that I could do what he wanted. And I was able to do. I mean, musically and artistically and vocally, I could do it. And that's the biggest thing for him, is that a singer could do what he wanted. And it worked. It always, I never felt ousted, or not in the right place or something.
Yeah.
I always felt like, wow, this is great. So
Intimidating?
no, the only time I was ever intimidated was when we were doing Rosenkavalier, and it was the first night of Rosenkavalier, and I walked out on the stage and I went, oh my God, you're a kid from Kansas City, Missouri. You don't know anything, and you're gonna sing this aria for these people here that have heard everybody and their mother sing it, and they've heard this opera, and this is scary.
What city was that?
That was in Salzburg.
Oh my God.
And also in Salzburg at the Salzburg Festival. And so that was all these things gelled into one, and I was like going, oh my God, I can't do this. And it was really fantastic. Really fantastic,
It's a short role, but it sure sits high.
Yes, I mean, it is the funniest thing. One of the funniest things is that I didn't realize there were 2 verses. And so when he hired me, he said, okay, what are you doing this summer? And I said, nothing. He said, no, you're coming to Salzburg. And I said, okay, fine. And when I left the audition, Carnegie Hall, I went, just kind of trolling down the street. I was very decided. And so I got to a phone and I called my mother, and my mother said, are you going to be in the Tonight Show? And I said, no, I'm not going to be on the Tonight Show, Mother, and she said, oh, okay. And so I said, okay, fine. And so then I called somebody and they said, so what do you think of that second verse? And I went, what second verse? And they said, the second verse of the Rosenkavalier. And I went, what? And I said, goodbye. And I ran up to Pedelson's and, looked at the score, and I said, oh, it's only half a verse. And I said, well, only half a verse, half step higher. I said, and you stop right before you have to sing the high C. So I said, okay, I can get a score from the library and Xerox this. I said, I don't need to buy the score. And so, yeah.
Wow.
It's a great opportunity.
Oh, and I wish younger people today knew what Pedelson's was. You mentioned Pedelson's, and had to have been one of my favorite places in New York. Alas, no more. Yeah.
I mean, it's like so many things that aren't anymore what they used to be.
When I look at your repertoire, and I think Mozart and French music as real specialties of yours, what comes to mind is Alfredo Kraus. And I wonder if you have thought about that as a possible vocal point of reference in your head. Did you have any artistic role models or singers who you thought, I want to do it sort of that way?
Well, I had people that I liked a great deal. I liked them vocally very much, and I liked what they did, and I liked what they did artistically. And he was one of those people I liked very, very much. And and young De Stefano was also. I mean, even though he was different.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in the Italian school, but when you listen to him sing early, when you listen to him sing sing Faust, and when you listen to him sing Manon, you know, you say, oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I mean, he did beautiful things in the Manon that were, you know, that weren't just screamed.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, he really knew how to sing. And so it's a very, oh gosh, you know, so many people that are just so fortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Vincent, you sang quite a lot in Seattle,
Yep.
and, you know, almost a kind of home company for you. And I'm wondering, what is the benefit to a singer to have a company where you go back multiple years, season after season? How does it enrich you to have that kind of relationship with a particular company?
Well, I think it's a great opportunity for a singer to figure out exactly what they should be singing. And that is something that, you know, I did every year. I mean, every year Spate would say, you know, I'd like for you to do this. I mean, I never should forget the year that he asked me, he said, I want you to sing Don Carlos in French. And I said, oh, Spade. I said, I'm way too young. I can't do that. And he said, yes, you can. And I said, no, I can't. And he said, yes, you can. And he said, take the score and go home and, you know, work on it. And so I went. I lived right down the street from Spade, so I went home and I pounded it out on the piano. And I said, well, it's possible. I said, but I don't know if it's possible for me, you know. And finally, I came back and I said, okay, I'll do it. I said, but it's got to be. I have to sing it my way.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the thing that Margaret was great at. I mean,
Yeah.
she would, you know, we went through that. We went through everything. We went through Don Jose. And you know, and we did it, quote unquote, my way.
Yeah, your way. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you know, some people liked it, some people didn't. I said, I don't care. You know, it's what I can do.
Yeah.
You know, what I can do is what I can do.
Yeah. So you're a teacher. You're teaching now, and do you enjoy it? What about it do you enjoy? What's frustrating about it? How is it being a teacher now?
God, being a teacher. Well, I was teaching at the university, and I enjoyed that very much. It was more. It frustrated me. I ended up leaving because the university was. The other teachers were. How do I put it? Or teaching, not. I don't care if somebody teaches exactly as I do. I don't think anybody teaches alike. I think everybody has a certain little variation. But I think it's got to be all good. And I think it has to be a sense of listen to the student, hear what they need, give them what they need, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and these people were not necessarily doing that. So I left, and I enjoy very much teaching. I teach freelance people now, and I enjoy working with them. I enjoy working with professional singers who can,
Mm-hmm.
you know, who are further ahead than, you know, a student in a college, maybe, you know.
Yep.
And it's a real joy. That's what I find, you know, when it goes well, when it's a note, you know, when that suggestion really works for them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they go, wow. They said, oh yeah, I know what you want. And I'm gonna go home and work on it. And I said, okay, fine, great. I said, you know, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call me. And, you know, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, sometimes they get it. And, you know, when they get it and they get it right, there's nothing more fulfilling.
Oh, how nice to hear that. How nice
Yeah.
to hear that.
Yeah.
In a 2003 interview that you did, you noted that in some of the earlier decades that you and I both know, there were incredible Black headline singers. I just spoke at an event for Denise Graves and her new foundation. And I grew up with Leontine Price and Martina Arroyo and Shirley Verrett and Grace Bunbury, and we could go on. And then it was Jesse Norman and Kathy Battle, on, and Simon Estes, and we've seen that diminish in years, and almost now seem to see an increase of the number of Black artists who are taking leading roles at really important companies in Europe and here in the United States.
Yeah.
What do we need to do better about supporting Black singers and singers of color in opera?
Well, I think that my situation was very unique. I started very early, and I started in a very professional way. I mean, not just singing opera, but just singing. I mean, learning how to sing, that's the most important thing that I feel that people don't do nowadays. They don't learn the real craft of singing. And I listen to people, and I learn from that. And I learn from, I think any time a singer is approached, to help them to learn. I mean, I think we all have to be open to to people and say, okay, let's try this this way. Let's try this that way, and you just kind of, I don't know, it just happens. But you have to really work at it. And I think that, people have to be given this opportunity. I don't think everybody's going to start at 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I probably wouldn't want everybody to start at 9 years old. But, there are certain people that start whenever they're, however young they may be. I remember when I was a youngster at Philadelphia, Curtis, and coming to New York to do auditions. And I would stay with a friend of mine, Florence Cuivar, who was
wonderful singer.
Wonderful mezzo. Maybe he was a soprano, who knows, But I heard her sing so much, and I'm vocalizing and everything. And, and I just learned, I would just listen to her vocalize, and I would say, what do you do up there? And she'd go up to C's, and, and no problem, and she'd do all the coloratura for Adagies and for Rosina and Cenerentola. And I would say, how do you do that? Because I was never a very good coloratura singer. Certain things, yes. Certain things, no. Right. And and she just went like the wind. And so I think that's something that we as singers today, I've noticed that people don't use their imagination enough. Not that you're going to imagine how you can sing, but you can use the imagination part of your singing and helping you to sing.
Mm-hmm.
To be a better musician, to be a better artist, to be, to really make it come to fruition.
So I hear you saying that the Vinson Cole advice to the young singers who must ask you for it all the time. One is listen to people.
Yeah.
One bit of advice is use your imagination, not to make up that you're a singer. That's what I do, but to imagine the art you want to make, to imagine the music that you want to make as an artist.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't imagine that you can, God, if I didn't imagine that I could sing Rodolfo at 26, I would have never been able to have sung him.
Yeah. But
I heard him in my way. And that's the biggest thing, I think, telling people, it's got to be in your way.
Mm-hmm.
It's, that you don't listen. I mean, listening to people can be great, but it can be terrible if you did listen to them in the wrong way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, if I tried to sound like Franco Corelli or, somebody, or, De Stefano, when he was like, doing that, I wouldn't have been able to have had the career I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I listened and I said, okay, now try that now. Try that in this,
Great
And
advice.
it's,
Great advice.
it's what we all can do.
And you're
Okay.
still vocalizing. Did I hear you say you still vocalize?
God, yes. I mean, I have to if I'm going to teach. Because I mean, you really you must do it every day, all the time. You must, be prepared as if you're going to sing. I'm not going to, but I still can. And and I said, I can still do it, but I don't want to, oh gosh, I don't want to do that again.
Well, Vincent, you have been one of the most gracious artists in today's conversation. You are gentle and gracious and generous, and I'm just so happy to have this time with you to record your impressions of what it takes to be the kind of singer you were. So
Well,
thank you. Thank you for spending this time with us. And
well,
I just am so happy for your students that they get to have your wisdom. Thank you.
thank you for having me. Oh, I enjoyed it.
We'll talk to you soon. You take care.
Okay. You
Thanks.
too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.